You got to do that. That's fun.
Is it?
Yeah, I've been having fun. You're going to have fun with this. I hope you load up. 100-foot line. Hey fans, thanks for tuning in. Nutnfancy here doing the tabletop review of my Duracoated Tapco equipped RNG. That's for run and gun. This is a 22 rifle set up for fast, high-paced, super fun run and guns in the Nutnfancy project. I'm not the first to do such shootings, but I just call them run and guns. There might be some other folks that use the same terminology because it explains what we do. In this tabletop review, I'm going to cover all the specifics of the gun, tell you my philosophy about how I have it set up. Maybe it will help guide your own expenditures and setups on your 1022 if you wish to accomplish the same POU. I'll talk some considerations of doing it on the cheap and still basically accomplishing the same capability. I kind of happened upon the run and gun concept by accident. For years, just like most 1022 shooters, or 22 shooters in general, I shot cans, I shot paper targets, both out in the desert, in the woods, in the swamps, at the ranges, all that. And finally upgraded to some spinning 22 plates that you've seen already in the Nutnfancy project, especially in 2008. I posted some videos showing that, and those are fun. I really enjoy doing that. I'll probably still do it. But if you want to maximize your ammo expenditure, which is very hard to come by and still expensive, doesn't matter what caliber you're talking, even 22 has gone up and extremely hard to come by, you might want to consider the run and gun option. For you guys that don't know, maybe just happened upon this video off the internet and not a TMP subscriber yet, what I'm talking about is going out with your friends or family and setting up an informal competitive course, generally about 100 yards in length, like you've seen at the Nutnfancy project, both in rain, snow, sleet, and sunshine, and you start getting it done. You get out there and do a competitive shoot at several stages, and I've set up some, and I've discussed them in depth in other videos. I might annotate some as we go along here.
1, 2, 3,
and the runners just run to each stage and engage with their 22s, and do magazine exchanges, and then usually on my last stage I like them to transition to pistol. That is a Nutnfancy run and gun. Primarily the purpose is for fun, to get out and just have some fun times with your friends. And you will find when you set your own run and gun up, it will be fun, and it's going to be a lot of backslapping, making fun of each other, you know, all the good stuff that makes a good friend and family outing. All cool. And you're really going to invest your time well. And that gets to the second purpose, at least according to me, and that is training. The more you shoot, the better you're going to get. You can practice all those basics of trigger and breath control, shooting stance. You're going to learn a lot about your systems, how they're going to integrate, i.e. the Sling system. Does it work for you? You're going to learn about your reloading options. Where am I going to extract the magazine from? Do I have pouches that fit that magazine properly? Will they come out while I'm running? All these are lessons learned with just a little .22 rifle. However, they're going to translate nicely to whatever gun you end up shooting. Now, if anyone's out there laughing, go, that's ridiculous, you know. You need to do it, and it is stressful. Some people who haven't done it may go, I'll run and guns, that's no big deal. Well, it's a little bit stressful, and that's a good thing. Shooting under stress is good training. It's practice, both for defensive encounters, combat, whatever you want to say. Maybe not with a 10-22, but the lessons learned about yourself and how you perform under pressure translate over to all the weapon systems you want to say. Seen it many times. And in the Nutnfancy project, knowing that you're being filmed and watched by thousands and thousands of people, it adds to the stress for some. So it's all a good thing. I mean, your performance is going to be scrutinized and perhaps critiqued. So yeah, it's stressful. And that makes it actually, in my opinion, more funner. Is that a word? How about more fun? So those are the purposes of a run and gun. Now let's talk about what kind of guns. I'm going to be pressed to get this done in 30 minutes, I think. But I'm going to try to do this in one part. Let's talk about guns you can use. As you've seen already, I highly advocate the Ruger 10-22. It is an excellent gun in every respect. Has a few couple quirks, like I said, in my two-part series on the Everyman's rifle, the Ruger 10-22, i.e. if you don't swap out the bolt release, it has kind of a quirky bolt release, and it doesn't hold open last shot. I can live with all of those things, and I have for the past 33 years. It is my top rated run and gun 22 rifle. Just like I said in my two-part series, the Ruger 10-22, the Everyman's gun, it has so many great qualities just out of the box that endear it to millions of users. It's accurate, reliable, cheap to fire, relatively speaking, of course. Tons of accessories, as you can see here, that you can outfit it for different philosophies of use, POUs I call them. In other words, your application for the gun. Has extended magazines which are available, different stock options. The list goes on and on. Out of the box, however, you may find it, and I'll say may, find it lacking a little bit for a run and gun type of POU. This is from my own experience watching guys show up at TMP doing a stock 10-22, and we had to like duct tape a sling on it, which I'll talk about here in a second. I would say that it probably behooves you to modify your gun a little bit to better suit that application, and it'll pay off bigger dividends in your fun factor and your training factor that can translate to your other guns. The Ruger 10-22 is not the only gun that you could do it with. You could basically do a run and gun with any type of rifle. You could do it with a pistol. You could do it with a shotgun. There's a myriad of ways to set it up, to run the courses, as long as you have a level playing field with competitors. In other words, if player A is using a, let's say, a 10-round magazine, then player B should be using a 10-round magazines. I find, of course, that the full capacity magazines, i.e. 25 or higher, are very advantageous for run and gun, and it makes it just so much funner. I probably would not recommend a tube-fed gun for a run and gun because loading it is so laborious, it just really is not suited to the run and gun battlefield, so to speak. There are other options, which I've kind of mentioned before in some other videos. One might be that Remington, that one you see sitting there on the left, 597. Okay, that is currently undergoing evaluation in the Nutnfancy project by myself. You'll see a separate tabletop on that. I think it's a good gun. It compares favorably with the 10-22, where the only weakness is that its magazines are kind of its Achilles heel. Here we see the Remington polycarbonate 597 rimfire mag, and I have not been impressed with these in my initial evaluation. I find them to be unreliable. They don't have steel feed lips, and I load a couple rounds up so you can see. This one particularly has been problematic in its feeding, and this is just through dry runs, and it just doesn't seem like it's going to last, which drives to another heart of the run and gun principle. You are going to put a lot of hard use on your guns doing run and gun. That's just the way it is. It's going to have to be tough. Everything on it's going to have to be reliable, which is kind of cool, really, because that is how I want everything on my guns, especially my raw guns or anything that I might use in defensive encounter. I'm not talking about 1022s, but I want it to rise to that level of durability and reliability where it just doesn't become a problem. What really pisses me off is when I put something on a gun and it ends up failing to perform as expected. I'll talk about an item I found out recently on the 1022. Another option, maybe the 795. That gun right there on the right-hand side. That's a Marlin 795. It's an outstanding high value, super accurate, super fun 22 semi-automatic rifle. And it has the advantage of having that last shot hold open, just like I talked about with the Marlin Papoose, another favorite Marlin 22 rifle of mine. The only problem with this gun for run and gun is it only comes with 10 round magazines. Yes, there are some extended ones out there by some off-brand makers, and I have evaluated them, and they sucked. They were unreliable. They didn't snap in the gun right. They were made out of thin metal. Therefore, to make this gun reliable, you're pretty much going to have to stick with those factory 10-round magazines with Marlin. Might be the same case with the 597 as well. The 10-round aluminum magazines, the newer ones with a Circle 10, I believe they have on the side, very reliable. But if you want to have fun, you want to maximize your training, dudes, you definitely want to go with, sorry about the dizziness as I clip in here, you definitely want to go with probably an extended capacity magazine. Let's talk about the specifics in. If you do decide to go with a Ruger 1022 for your run and gun fun, this is how I outfit it. You are again looking at my Duracoated Tapco Intrafusion stocked run and gun 22 by Nutnfancy. There's lots of guys that love the Intrafusion stock. Put my name on that list, because after running and gunning with this thing and using it, I'm a big fan of this stock. For a lot of different reasons. And that's where I'll start off, is with the stock you'll choose for the run and gun. It's slim in the forend. That's one thing I like. I do not like bulbous, huge forearms, whether it's on an AR-15, a SIG 5.56, or a 1022. I like them slender. Whether I grasp it on the front or whether I use a vertical grip or VG, doesn't matter. A slim forend doesn't get in the way. It makes a trimmer package so it's not banging on stuff. Nice job on that Tapco. Really nice job. I became a fan of the stock. I can't quit saying that. I became a fan of this stock when I reviewed that Mac 90 of my buddies, and he has that Tapco Intrafusion stock system on his gun. I really like this pistol grip. That's a M249 style pistol grip. I became very fond of it as I shot his gun, and that's what opened my eyes to the product. The collapsible buttstock, also Duracoated underneath by me, as shown in the video, is adjustable to multi-positions. There's a little bit of wobble at the end, but I have found that really isn't a factor. This is a great accessory right here, dudes, or a feature, that you're able to change this length of pull on your 1022 RNG run and gun, because you might be wearing some tactical gear, it might be winter, you might have a thick coat, and so you might want to vary your length of pull according to conditions. Also, if you loan your rifle to someone, maybe if it's a female shooter or a shooter of small stature, great way to accommodate them. Just a real simple adjustment mechanism, and that's something you're going to completely miss out on if you stick with a factory Ruger stock. The versatility of this collapsible stock for a run and gun option, in my opinion, is pretty much indispensable at this point. You could run a Butler Creek stock. I reviewed that in my two-part series on the 1022. That is a great stock. It is not adjustable, though. Cheek weld is nice. The Tapco Intrafusion stock comes with two types of stocks. One is angled and one is straight. Supposedly, the angled one is for the use of iron sights on the 1022. The straight one is supposedly used for optics. Nutnfancy, I found that this angled portion is more suited to the red dot setup that I have. We'll discuss that in a sec. But great setup. A little bit of checkering there at the butt end. I find that it doesn't need any tape, doesn't need any of that 3M traction stuff on it. It sticks to your shoulder adequately enough. Great job. Other features, it's made out of good materials. The Tapco Intrafusion is a very hard and high quality composite. It's not bendable. It's very sturdy. I think you can bang it around, knock on it a lot without any undue wear. The pistol grip that you will have to attach out of the box attaches firmly. There's no wiggle at all. You can swap it out for some AK-47 style Tapco grips. You might have a little gap here in the front. You can build a filler if you want there too. Great pistol grip. And then that brings us to the Picatinny rail system. And I'll get to that in a sec, but this is not the only 1022 stock system that I'm impressed with. The other one might be the ProMag Archangel stock. I have not personally used the stock. I have taken it out at Impact Guns and studied it in depth, and I've solicited feedback from people I respect, and I think it's another good, if not great, option for running gunning. Just like this Tapco Intra Fusion stock, it's made out of very high quality composite material. It's modular in design. It bolts together strongly. It's got Picatinny rails on the front for the attachment of lights, vertical grips, whatever other accessories you want. I'm maybe not totally enamored with a polymer sleeve on the Archangel stock that slips over the barrel with a very M4 looking style suppressor mechanism up there. Some guys will dig that. But in holding it and handling it, I found it to be just as lightweight and just as sturdy as a Tapco Intra Fusion stock. The only downside I can see on that Archangel stock is it's very expensive. And that's another benefit to the Tapco Intra Fusion. From Natchez Shooter Supplies, I think this one I bought on sale for around $70. Good deal for a gun I'm going to have for the rest of my life, and I'll hand down to my kids. Decent. Back to the Picatinny rails though. It's very advantageous to attach, in my opinion, a vertical grip with this particular stock setup. Hold on though, you don't need a vertical grip. You might just get by with a standard 1022 stock. Understood, and no problems. I'm on board with that. I like it though. Having used it in the running guns, as you can see, booking it out in the desert, you know, posting in both kneeling and standing positions, I prefer it. Tactical Doodle, my son, sometimes he'll go here, just forward of the mag well, just like an AR-15, which I sometimes do as well. So it gives you the option. You don't have to use it. It also comes, the Intra Fusion stock comes with a cover plate on this bottom Picatinny rail, so you can make that portion smooth. Now, a modification that I said and you saw in video in my Duracoat 1022 put together video, which you'll see in annotation, is I put this Streamlight Tactical Illuminator mount on the side of the Intra Fusion stock. I had to use longer screws, it turns out, in order to sink it in there very solidly. I don't need a lot of rail space, rail space on the side of my 1022. All I need is just a little run for a light, because that's all I'm planning on putting here. If I decide to go a light laser combo for whatever reason later, I can still fit it on that rail. If you want to add, let's go to the stock here, and this is again, if money is tight and you still want to set your gun up, you can add a rail to your stock 1022 as well. And you can purchase such short aluminum Picatinny rails that Ergo Grip makes, for instance. Here's a version right here. It's made of aluminum. You could screw it in the stock. You might have to shim it to level it out so that light is perpendicular, or parallel, I should say, parallel to the bore axis. Might take a little bit of gunsmithing, which most guys that are somewhat handy will be able to do. You could put this on any of your stocks if you're willing to do it. You could put it underneath. You'll have to shim it more to make it level. You see where I'm going? So you don't have to get an Intra Fusion stock. But it sure is nice out of the box having an option like this. Of course, that was a modification here. Great stock. And then it screws on the top. I think I mentioned this during the put together vid. This is a very sturdy attachment. And that's an important consideration, because if we're going to mount optics up there, whether it's a red dot, maybe a scout style scope, we don't want that moving around. And it seems very solid to me. No, I have not mounted optics up there yet. Don't know if I will, but it's nice having that option. I have chosen to use the factory Weaver rail that Ruger has. You saw me attaching that, Loctite it in. I like that red dot a little bit closer to my big old head. I just like that. But it's an option, and options are always good. What a great stock this is. It's not free-floated, and it does, out of the box, only fit their factory profile 1022 barrel. There are guys that have milled it out to fit that .92-inch barrel, and it's a very successful mod, I understand. So yeah, you could put maybe a Butler Creek, a Volquartsen barrel, or the Tac Sol barrel underneath this if that's what you're after. And that'll take us to barrels. One of the primary considerations you want to have for your RNG, your run and gun, is reliability. Having shot some run and guns out in bad weather, like you saw in Armed Serenity with my buds and the TMP crew, we had some chokes of several guns. Most of the guns that were having problems had different aftermarket barrels on them, myself included. That Butler Creek barrel was giving me problems. If you want to have the most reliable 1022 you can, stick with the factory barrel. Okay, there you have it. Nutnfancy advocates sticking with the factory 1022 barrel if you want a reliability advantage. And shoot good ammunition and use good magazines. All three of those, it's a three-pronged concept of reliability, and I chose, as you've seen here, to stick with the Ruger factory 1022 barrel, and I don't regret it a bit. The only thing I would probably change on this setup, and you may see a modification to this particular gun in the future, is milling this down to 16 inches, Frenching on, or actually threading on, having it professionally done, a Phantom 5C2 flash suppressor. That would be a wicked setup. Permanently pin it so it matches or meets legal requirements. Be 16 inches overall length. Wicked cool. I don't mind having the little bit extra length of this 18.5-inch barrel longer now that I've fitted this John Mason flash suppressor to. It still is very handy, very portable. And let's talk about the flash suppressor. Is that needed for run and gun? Nope, it's not. But it's, you know, we get into kind of the second type of cool here. In both Armed Serenity and myself, we attached these. I advocated the use of these John Mason flash suppressors because visually it balances the rifle out. And no, it's not functional for a 22 long rifle, but it looks cool. Also, there's something to be said for perhaps if you ever do use a 1022 for defensive purposes, it is fairly intimidating to look down that big old flash suppressor, don't you think? And for someone who does not know anything about guns, he doesn't know that's a 22. All he knows is there's a big old barrel looking at him, and he will probably cease and desist from doing his bad guy stuff. Okay, so it actually might have a practical purpose. There is something to be said for making your gun looking intimidating. And getting back to that Archangel stock by ProMag, you know, guys might laugh that that's included with, along with that gun comes a fake bayonet made of Zytel. But again, you know, for a non-gun bad guy looking at that, it's going to look very mean, very intimidating. So yeah, I can understand it. There might be a need for it. But for me, primarily, it's for visual balance and overall good looks. I love the looks of it. I'm very impressed with this flash hider. Haven't had any problems. As you could see in that put together video of the 1022, fairly easy to install. Has a set screw. We put some Loctite in there. Good job. They don't make that really cool one that I showed you in my two-part Ruger 1022 series, that Eagle one. I really like the profile and the step-down feature of that. I don't like the long version of the John Mason flash suppressor. That's just my personal preference. I don't like a flash suppressor. It sticks way out. I want it short and compact, especially when it's pretty much non-functional, like on this 22-chambered rifle. While we're speaking of aesthetics, this is a good time to talk about the Duracoating. Is Duracoating necessary for your run and gun setup? Absolutely not. It's just purely second type of cool. It adds to the enjoyment factor of your gun, how you enjoy it, how you like looking at it, how impressed your friends are when you bring it out. All that's important. You might gain some added rust advantage on the barrel, definitely. And this gun, as it is, completely Duracoated by me, Nutnfancy, in the TMP workshop, as you saw. I mean, everything's coated. I chose not to Duracoat the bolt at this time. I might do it later. But yeah, you're going to get some added rust advantage on that. And I'll tell you, man, here's our Inadvertent Smells stock 1022 Duracoated. By the way, how hilarious is this? I installed his rear sight backwards and he still doesn't know it. Isn't that funny? I'm going to see how long he goes without saying anything. So don't say anything to him. Just see if he ever figures it out. And that's just funny. He doesn't have like really fast internet, so he doesn't check on the vids very often. In fact, you probably won't watch that one. But getting back to his gun, this is the stock birch. The factory birch stock from 1022, and he was very excited when he saw how cool this tactical coyote brown by Duracoat is, by Lauer Weaponry. This is a very cool color. By the way, anytime you see tactical in it, that means it's flat. It has no reflection. There's some good and bad on that. The good is that it does not reflect. It looks very cool, very tactical. There's that word again. Oh, tactical. It looks great. The downside is, compared to their somewhat satin finished Duracoats, which you've seen me shoot before, is that it will show markings more. As you bump and bruise it, it's going to show abrasions more, since it is a matte finish, just kind of like a flat paint on your walls. The reason they go with satin paints on your interior walls is because it doesn't show markups as easy. Just something, but I'm really pleased with the looks. It just looks very, very cool. How about the trigger on the 1022? For run and guns, do you need to do anything with that? I do. Like I said, this is a Clark custom trigger that I put in the trigger group on this 1022. I'm very pleased with it. It's fast firing, crisp let off, light enough. There are some other options out there. Some can break the bank. The Volquartsen 2000 trigger group, very expensive. The Jar trigger group, very expensive. Power Custom, a semi-affordable option. I am investigating some gunsmithing options. I'll make a separate video on that if I find that the gunsmith I'm going to use is successful and I think he provides quality work, and I field test it in the tactical clinic and find out it's good. It's going to be around $40 for that. So yeah, I'm always trying to save you guys money and still get the same level of performance. You can run your 1022 in a run and gun with absolutely no trigger modifications. Inadvertent smell on his gun, he's got nothing. This is just a pure stock 1022 trigger. You really probably don't need that. Again, maybe the second type of cool. Do you want it? I do. I like the higher rates of fire I can achieve with a aftermarket, lighter, crisper trigger. Other modifications, definitely that auto bolt release. Remember we talked about that in the two-parter? Definitely get that auto bolt release. That Christie's brand that Tactical Innovation sells on their website for like $10 is a good option. The Volquartsen one, good option. Now, do you need an extended bolt handle for your 1022? I kind of like having that option, to be honest. In fact, this is that polymer one you saw in the workshop that we outfitted. This is Smell's gun. I don't think he's fired it excessively. I have found that this has failed me in the field. In fact, it's not going to fail or come off during firing. It's when you actuate it with the palm of your hand, your fingers, it's going to eventually loosen off, and I had it actually causing jams with me on this gun as the shells were deflected onto the extended handle and coming back into the chamber. So I'm not a big fan of that. They need to come up with a better way to attach that it absolutely will not come off. If you want an extended bolt handle on your 1022, you probably ought to just buy one like Volquartsen's and ante up for the money. They're going to be around $30. But as you fire, remember, speed is critical to win in run and gun. As you come off, I like using my offhand here, just like a lot of AK users do. I can't see with the angles, and I'll actuate the bolt knob. So having it stick out farther is a good thing. So I am getting sold on extended bolt handles. You'll probably see some retrofitted. Right now I'm just running the stock one on this RNG. Extended magazine release. Those are stock with all 1022s. Remember we discussed that? If you have an older one, then go ahead and retrofit it. A flush mounted one I think will really slow you down and make it more cumbersome for you during your magazine changes. I don't recommend them. Put a little nylon one in there. They only cost $3 to $5. Different makes and models abound out there. I think Power Custom has one. Again, you can go Tactical Innovations website. Tell them Nutnfancy sent you, and buy it from them for like $4 or something. Definitely worth it. And this is the extended or the auto bolt release. As an added benefit, it's going to stick out further, so you can lock the bolt open a little bit more. Okay, enough of that. Moving on. How about magazines? We discussed this in the Ruger 1022 two-parter. This is a critical part of your run and gun system, and the main reason I advocate the use of 1022s, because there's reliable extended magazines out there, like the Tactical Innovations one, the polymer version, the TI-25 that I told you guys about. Look how cool that is in Duracoat. Very cool. Yes, I shot that in Duracoat. Here's one in olive drab. This is a Butler Creek. Steel lips, also an excellent choice. And remember, you're going to put a lot of wear and tear on your guns as you're firing, dudes. So you want a magazine that can take that abuse. You're going to be doing fast magazine changes. You're going to be dropping, slamming. You're going to be doing lots of rounds. You're going to shoot more than you think you will. Awesome. Have a good magazine. The Hot Lips is another version, like we discussed. I always prefer the steel-lipped ones. They're more reliable. So yeah, have a good magazine. Yeah, I Duracoated it, didn't have to, but again, going for that look, that's just something I wanted, and I'm glad I did it. How about the light on the 1022? Okay, I like doing run and guns at night as well. Just like you saw in my night ops video, I might annotate that. It is a blast, no pun intended, getting out there with your guns and doing some night shoots too. Now some guys will weigh in, oh, you would never use your light, man, it just directs enemy fire to yourself. Well, remember, we're doing run and guns primarily for fun, secondarily for training, and the use of your tactical light. And I like putting a light on every gun I have. Long arm that is tactically oriented wears a light in the Nutnfancy inventory because it is a useful thing primarily for target identification. Some guys in the comments say, well, I don't need a light, I don't need illuminated sights. Oh, really? Well, how do you ID your target? How do you see your sights, assuming you're not using a red dot illuminated sight? Good question. I say run a flashlight, and it's really fun, and that training you'll accomplish with maybe your P3D or other Phoenix or Nightcore light to the side of your gun will translate to your AR-15. All I use to mount this one, by the way, is a Duracoated utility sport ring. I think that's the brand. This is a very inexpensive aluminum scope ring, and I just put those plastic shims in there just like I showed you in the P3D review vid, and it locks in nice and tight. Then if I need to actuate it, I can go just with push button. I don't like wires hanging off my gun. I don't like actuated pads. I've tried those in the 80s and I hated them. Just a simple push button, and you can see how ergonomically placed that is near the VG. Very easy. That is a great light. The more I use the P3D setup on all my guns, the more I'm pleased with it. It's just outstanding. Getting to the sights, can you run the run and gun with just an open sight 1022? Absolutely. You've seen guys doing it in the project. There's one right there. That's the RPF, I think, model number 1022 iron sights. You can run that with no optics on it, whatever. You can run it with a scope, dialed down to your lowest power. You probably need one around 2 power. I would not run and gun with a 4-power scope, assuming that your range is close to around 10 yards, which generally ours do. The ideal setup, really, in my experience, for the run and gun option is a red dot sight. And there's lots of options out there, ranging from expensive to less expensive. Let me clip back in the mothership. Hang on. I'm going to run just a little bit long, maybe a lot long on this video, because I just want to make it one part. But let's rock and roll. Red dot sights, I think they are the best option for run and gunning. It doesn't mean you need them. You can go with the iron sight version if you want, and you've seen a lot of TMP dudes, maybe not a lot, but some of them in our videos that just went with iron sights, both with AR-15 and Ruger 1022, and you can be successful at that. And there's a lot of guys that go simple, and it works for them. You don't need any optics. But Nutnfancy says if you want to increase your speed, more importantly, if you want to do it at night after dark, you're going to need some type of illuminated optic. I recommend the red dot setup. You can spend a lot of money with this. You can go with the Aimpoint, EOTech options. Maybe you already have them, and you can swap them over to your 1022. That's an option. Kind of a hassle, but you can do it. Now, if you're not willing to spend 500 plus, maybe 400 plus on your optic for your 1022, there's lots of great options out there that will be much less expensive. We'll start off first. Some of these are on loan from friends. The Burris Speed Dot. You saw me shooting this many times on the Keltec SU-16C. I think it is a high value, great choice red optic sight. They have the tactical version of this. It's a little bit heavier and it has a larger MOA dot. I do prefer the Speed Dot currently because it has that 3 MOA precise dot. I like the smaller dots, just like my Aimpoint ML3s on the ARs. Those are awesome sights. Go small if you can. If you need a bigger, to see the dot better, just crank up the brightness and it'll just appear bigger. Another good option, the Millet SP5. I have lots of trigger time on this sight as well. I have it on a couple guns and I've shot others. They're great great sights. They're high value, relatively rugged. Don't put it on an air gun. I found that out. The double recoil will break it. Sent it back to Millet and they repaired it free of charge. This is a 5 MOA dot version. The 30 mil version has a 5 MOA dot, and the other one has the 1-inch compact version that you saw in my compact 1022 has a 3 MOA dot. Great sight option. My current favorite, however, is the ADCO A3 A30, and that's what I have on this 1022 RNG. That is an A30 red dot, and it wears a very precise 1.5 MOA red dot. Great red dot. In my experience, I mean, I might have some surprises as time goes on, but so far so good. Very positive detents. All the ones I just discussed are the same way. When you switch, I don't recommend getting those types that have the interchangeable crosshairs on them, because I have found that the detents suck on them and you'll lose some accuracy. And it's just not a good. I haven't seen one yet that I like. Just go with a simple red dot. Make it lightweight, reliable, and affordable. This one's around $100. This A30 Adco. However, if that's too expensive for you, there are other options that are almost as good, like this one. The BSA green dot scope also comes in red. Purchased for around $18 from Notches Shooter Supplies. They're online. Another great place to get all your gun gear. Good site. I'm amazed at this site, actually. Seems to be water resistant. We got it caught in the rain. Adequately strong. Comes with a built-in mount that you can mount on a weaver. Actually, this one is weaver only. Be careful. It's not for a 22 rail if that's all you have on your gun. But good site. And guess what? That's what Inadvertent Smell's running. This is the red version called the RD30. Yes, we Duracoated it to make it look cooler, to match the gun. He loves it. Real accurate, and I have trigger time on it now. I've also shot a Remington bolt action Model 5 with it, and I'm impressed with the extreme value of this sight. And if that's what you want a night capability, or just to enhance your speed in the run and gun, the RD30 or any of these BSA sights seem to be good options for me right now. How about the slings? Do you need a sling setup for your run and gun? I recommend it, and I recommend a single point sling too. And that's because I like transitioning to a pistol at the last stage, and a single point sling just seems to be the best way to do it. You can sling the gun out of your way. You have less straps to get in the way. Easier access to your pistol. It's funner, it's more challenging, and I think it's better training to simulate a failure drill or just your long arm is out of ammunition. That's what we always do in the Nutnfancy project. This is a simple setup we have here. You can see it's just screwed into the side of the stock like so, with Uncle Mike's stud swivel that I put in there and epoxied it in, and then we just put a sling swivel on that. And Inadvertent Smell likes it. He says it works good. This sling right here, I think it's KI brand. Look at annotation if I'm wrong. $10 from Bowtac Tactical. Comes in all kinds of colors. High value sling option. And that's what I'm running on my gun too. I just got the version with the single point sling attachment. Got it in Coyote Brown. I have some over wrapped Velcro attachment here so the slings don't get all messed up on me or misadjust while I'm using it. This is the Intrafusion stock sling swivel, meant to go on the front of the gun. I put it in the rear and used it as a single point sling setup. Very happy with it. I have trigger time with it, and it works great. Whew, yeah, I'm way over time now. Who cares, man? We've covered some good ground, talked about some good stuff. The Nutnfancy run and gun, again, I didn't invent it, but there's some, I kind of advocate it. It's a fun way to get out and maximize the use of your expensive ammunition, make really good family and friend memories. You need a gun that's reliable, though. You need one that's relatively accurate, as these little Rugers are. And if you want to add in the second type of cool with colorations and these cool additions, whether it's this Intrafusion stock, maybe the Archangel stock, go for it. You will not regret it, and you're just going to have a blast out there. You'll see it more and more in the Nutnfancy project, whether it's AR-15s, other tactical carbines, or just 22s. I think they're 90% of the fun of centerfire rifles. I really do. Whew, man, good times. Nutnfancy signing off. Thanks for all the support and all you do for me. And I'll keep cranking out the vids as I can. See ya!